My wife, who's really bossy, was like, everyone get out of the row. Is there a doctor? So we get a doctor. The guy won't stop throwing up, and he's like shaking. I'm like, this guy's going to, so he turns out he'd just fallen asleep, and a popcorn kernel got in his mouth. So, you just throw up once. So you wake up with a mouthful of vomit, and then you just start aspirating with, and on the scene, the guy's cauterizing the wound. All right, we are so glad to bring on this next guest. Every now and then, we have presidential candidates, we have crazy transsexuals, but we get someone who I'm actually...
Neither of those.
Neither of those. We get someone I'm a fan of. I've been following him for years. You can follow him on Twitter at the Crippler UFC. Fought for the UFC for a long time. His new book is out, The Crippler: Cage Fighting and My Life on the Edge. Chris Leben, thanks for being on, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's not a guest most people would usually expect, right? It's generally more political, and I was listening to Chael's show. He's been on the show a bunch of times. He's kind of a recurring guest. And I heard you say, California, they're so liberal with their gun laws. And I thought, wait a second. There's a guy who's put some thought into this. All right, so listen, before we get into that, you have this book. So you seem like you're an open book. So if I cross any boundaries, just let me know. But you just did some time in the clink.
I did, if that's what you want to call it, yeah.
Well, I don't know. What do you want me to call it? You want me to call it the Slammer, the Keeney, boss?
Vacation. I was on vacation for a little while.
Well, you gained some weight. I know that.
Taxpayer vacation.
Vacation.
Yes.
What's the story behind that for our listeners right off the bat, and then we'll get into everything else.
Unregistered assault rifles are not legal in California.
Okay, hold on a second though, because we do a lot of things on gun control. Now, as I understand it, this was your gun, this was your firearm, a legal firearm, and what constitutes assault rifle in California? That's what was so fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know. There was no bullets and no clip or nothing with the firearm when they found it, so when it got turned in. So
were you a felon before that? Not allowed to own a firearm?
No. I have another gun that's registered in California, and then that one was fine,
Isn't it, not Gay Jared knows this better, isn't it in California a capacity of 5? I mean, it's absurdly low.
It's absurdly low. I can't remember what it is. I think if it's grandfathered in, you just can't load it past that point, as I understand it.
Well, you can have those pre-banned clips or whatever, but also now every gun has to have a bullet button, so where you eject your little 5-round clip, you have to use the tip of a bullet to try to stick it in there.
Yeah.
That way you can't win a fight against anybody.
Right, yeah, somebody to cheer comes in. Sweetie, where's the bullet button? A head full of sleep at 3 a.m. with a guy in a hoodie out in the end of your bed. Quick,
so retarded. So stupid.
Get the gun lock.
It's like Dr. Seuss laws.
No, the gun lock's made in China. It broke. Well, I guess I'm getting raped. Oh, California. All right, sorry. So that, and then there was also you were breaking and entering. But when I read it, you were breaking and entering.
My house. Yeah. No, I know. It's crazy. Ex-wife's about to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so, she wrote this BS TRO, and the only thing that would stick was the fact that she turned in the firearm, which was registered to me.
Okay.
And she knew that's what the DA would want, so they went after me over the gun.
Oh,
so that's all and I lost.
Well, yeah, I would say. Now, to be fair,
it was totally legal. It would have been totally legal in Oregon and fine, which is where I had purchased it, and I had brought it down from Oregon.
Oh, okay.
I've had several firearms up there, and then also in Hawaii, but I just brought this one down and hadn't had it registered.
Well, to the viewer who's not familiar, obviously, with mixed martial arts, the UFC. They're going to say, well, this is a tattooed guy with an ear that looks like an appetizer from Long John Silver's. He probably has a record. What would you say to them? I mean, do you think they were looking for you or was just, what's this? I mean, there's got to be a little bit more, or is it just a really smart ex-wife lawyer?
really smart ex-wife lawyer.
Okay.
It really is. It really is. I mean, yeah, I'm not a bad guy. I have no violent charges or no assaults or anything like that. Um, just you
Mischief.
know, well, mischief. Yeah, one or two mischief charges possibly.
Yes. I mean, we
But
are talking to the
you
guy
know,
who spritzed on a guy's bed on a reality TV show.
yeah,
So, but you know what's funny? Watching all that for a long while, I remember you when you were still the cat smasher before you went to Crippler, and the one thing that struck me, I think you've obviously grown up since then, since the show was, yeah, you were a troublemaker, but the reaction to you from the coaches, I was, well, hold on, why are they reacting? Why are they so taunted this guy? It seemed like you genuinely were apologetic when you screwed up, and you had a good heart, and that was kind of the first example in a reality show where you were kind of the villain and then it turned dramatically mid-season. Did you feel that when the UFC exploded? Were most people on your side at that point, or were you still kind of playing heel? What was that like? I mean, you were there during the big burst.
It was kind of one or the other, really. I mean, I'd say 50-50, but it was either they love me or they hate me, one of the two,
Right.
which I guess is the important thing. But I probably get more than the comment I get most is, wow, I thought you were just a dumb fighter, or wow, I thought you were going to be an asshole. Those are the basic surprises that people get when they meet me. They always assume the worst, but you got to remember when you're being followed around 24 hours a day for a week with cameras to make a 40-minute segment of TV,
right?
They can paint anybody however they want.
Right.
That's why they have directors on reality TV.
Right. No, it's funny. I never got the sense you were an unintelligent guy, and you know why? Because you and Nate Corey, this is one thing for me. I know it sounds silly, but a barometer for intelligence is someone who's able to pick up cultural references. And you were both referencing The Jerk with Steve Martin, I think, on the show. You're talking about how that's all I need. And I was sitting there, it was right back and forth, and you caught it, and there were a few kind of references or historical that you got. And I'm going, if someone is watching this and they don't know what they're watching, they don't realize this is banter between two clever guys, regardless of the tattoos.
Well, and I didn't have as many then.
No, you didn't. But I will say that is indicative of perhaps not the best financial sense, because that's a car payment.
But this I could have paid off a car easy for what these have run me.
Just the back piece alone. I mean, you're going into Russian prison, Alexander Emelianenko herpes territory.
It's hard work being cool. I mean, really, you got to pull out all the stops.
Well, and then you get put in the clink. Okay, so that brings us to that. This absurd charge. Now, does that mean you cannot legally own a firearm now? Did that count as a felony?
Yeah, can't do it.
So did you have to sell? Do they confiscate them? Do you have to sell them all off?
Yeah, they compensated it. Yeah, they took it.
Well, see, at least you didn't pull a Donald Trump where you just repeated it wrongly. You were like, I'm not going to talk myself into a corner. Let me use an easier word.
It's gone.
It's gone. They're gone now. That's one of those things I think is interesting as far as a macro political point, because when you're dealing with the law or the government, they can prosecute whoever they want and find anything they want. Now, I don't know all the details here. Maybe, to be fair, maybe you were wrong, maybe you weren't. I can't make that judgment. But that should serve as a warning to a lot of people listening or watching that they can find something on you and take your rights away. And that's a big one.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Well, so Jared, not get Jared, how much time do we have here in this first segment? Because I feel like
we got about 5 minutes.
Okay, we got 5 minutes. Okay, good. We don't want to rush him. So you were in jail. Now, when you get there, are a lot of them fans? Are they afraid of you, or does it not matter because they're in gangs? What's that like for a professional fighter? Because a lot of people think the professional fighter is going to go in there; it's going to be easy.
Well, when I first went in, they wanted to put me in. They were afraid that the other inmates would want to try to test me, so they put me in solitary confinement. That lasted about 4 days, and I was like, "Get me out of here! I'll take my risk," Because I remember I was waiting to call my girlfriend, and you're only allowed a half hour out a day, right, out of your cell. And right before I'm about to get out of my cell. The guy before me decides to take a crap in his hand and throw it on the wall. And so now they had to bring in people to clean up the crap on the wall. Yeah, I was so mad. So I missed my chance to get out and shower and use the phone and stuff. And by then I just had enough of sitting by myself.
But hold on a second. Did this guy have a problem with you, or was it just kind of like Tuesday, so he did it?
Tuesday, totally. Tuesday. That's it.
There's no rhyme or reason. All right, and they let you out in general, right?
And then they put me in general, and really, I mean, it wasn't bad, It was pretty sad being in there because you see so much mental disease, and so many people are in there because they're on probation because they're a drug addict, and then they get caught doing drugs, so they get thrown back in jail. They lose their job,
right?
They end up stealing something. But the level of mental health that I saw with people in there was just horrible. Cal, we had one guy that they left locked in his cell for a month. He never came out to take a shower or nothing, and he was fighting a demon in the cell every day, screaming and fighting with this demon. And I tried to tell the guards, like, man, this guy needs to be in a crazy person house. He needs medication, and apparently the one guy that takes no medication in jail is the guy fighting a demon. And there's nothing they do about it. They just leave him in there.
Really? Wow, that is fascinating. And, I think it brings up an interesting conversation because then you go to Sweden, like Alexander Gustafsson, where people who commit incredibly heinous violent crimes live in an apartment that a New Yorker in Manhattan would envy, if they're spending $3,000 a month. So they're entirely about rehabilitation with no punishment. In the United States, it's almost entirely about punishment. Do you think there's a middle ground? Do you lean toward at least these violent offenders being punished, or do you think they should all have Xbox 360s and IKEA bookcase beds?
Definitely, there's a middle ground. I think for a violent offender, that's a whole nother thing. We got to make sure, positively sure that they are rehabilitated before we start giving them luxuries.
Right.
But with a lot of these people that have mental health issues, can't hold a job, and get caught stealing a candy bar, and then get thrown back in jail because it's their 17th time doing it. There's something that we need to do for these people, besides just keep recycling them in the jail system, and a lot of these people on drugs, the education, rehabilitation is going to be the key there. Obviously the putting them in jail again and again and again isn't working.
Yeah, but I guess the other question would be there are obviously rehabilitation programs and job placement programs, and the rate of people going back to that life is so high. I mean, I would wager the guy fighting a demon, it's probably not his first time through that turnstile. You know what I mean? Like, so at a certain point you go, okay, 8 times, why don't you just say, leave him in there, there's nothing we can do? I mean, that's the question, right?
Yeah, but somebody that's a drug addict, who are they hurting but themselves, really?
It's a good question.
If they're not a dealer, they're not selling the stuff, if that's their addiction, and until you deal with that addiction, they're never going to get better, and the fear of jail isn't going to be what's going to fix them. It's going to have to be rehabilitation. That's the only way. And a lot of the guys were just sitting, waiting to get into some sort of a treatment program because there's just not enough.
Right. Okay, well, listen, we have to go to a break here. I think it's a valid question. It changes when we're dealing with moving towards a socialized healthcare system, like where I was with Canada, because then it's, well, who are you hurting? Well, the taxpayer, if you're going through 9 or 10 rehabilitation programs. Chris Leben, his book is out. We'll have a link up at the website. If you're listening terrestrially, stay tuned to Louder with Crowder. We are back. The Crippler, Chris Leben, his book, Cage Fighting and My Life on the Edge, is out there. I was looking for an Audible version because they're a sponsor to the show, but you don't have an audiobook out on this, do you?
Actually, I think we just got done making it. The book just came out, so
and it's selling like crazy.
It's doing good. It's selling really well. They wanted to do an audiobook, and so they just got done doing it. I don't even know if it's available yet, but It will be shortly.
Okay.
That's how I do all my reading. I lay in bed and listen to books. That's it.
Yeah, well, although your voice has definitely gotten more hoarse, so would it be tough to get through a whole audiobook?
No. Well, I don't know. I don't read them. I listen to them. I like to listen.
But I mean, but your audiobook, is it you doing it?
No, it's like a professional radio. One of you guys with a radio voice.
No. You've made a horrible mistake. We are not professionals here. Have you seen how this interview's gone? Oh, well, that's a bummer. I think actually it would have been better to have you do it because you've got more character to it.
Yeah, it's just wouldn't have been my thing to sit down and read a whole book anyway. So I'm glad somebody else did it. But it will be out and available shortly.
Okay. So speaking of which, you were talking about drugs. Again, I don't want to overstep any bounds, but you've been pretty public about this. Have you? Are you clean now? How has that changed? You feeling good?
I feel great. Yeah, I feel great. I'm 100% clean. And just sharper, better in the gym than I've ever been. For listeners that don't know, I was on Oxycontin for 10 years dealing with, obviously it started with pain and then it went to other things. And then, since then, I went to rehab. I got on a drug they call Suboxone, and then I was doing the AA and everything on the Suboxone. And I would have
Is that like,
I wasn't.
Is that kind of like Subutex for heroin? Where it's like
exactly what it is.
Oh, okay.
Same drug.
Okay.
Same thing. So the doctors were giving me like 16 milligrams of this stuff a day, and then I wasn't drinking or anything, so I would have told you I was sober, but hindsight's 2020. I tried to quit it twice, and my life completely fell apart. This third time, everything's a blessing in disguise. Getting thrown in the big house, or whatever you called it.
Are we just going through every 50s term for prison? We can the clink, the big house with the boys.
I was able to, in preparation, I cut my dosage down, and then when I went in the jail, they won't give it to you in there.
Right.
So you're kind of. Where maybe my will broke before and things fell apart. When you're facing absolutely no choice, which is the deal in jail. It's gonna work. So I think that nothing could have got me off. It's a horrible drug. It's terrible for you, and it. Are
you talking about Oxy or the Subutex?
The Suboxone, Subutex. It's far more addictive than the Oxy. And it's got some terrible health effects, but. This is what they give you to get off.
Right.
So, 6 in one, half dozen in the other.
Well, I've speaking obviously with that, I've never really struggled with any kind of addiction issues. But I did severely rupture a disc, and I've told the story on air to the point where, and they misread the MRI, so I actually couldn't walk. I couldn't even move my legs.
Right.
And so they were injecting me with all this stuff, and like, go home. And I was going like, I don't want to be a wussy with a capital P, but I can't move my legs. So you think they would have thought something when they had to put me in a wheelchair and call a friend to wheel me home, and I wasn't walking for a while. So they put me on Percocet, Valium, Soma, and some. I think prednisone is like a steroid to bring down the inflammation. So I mean, that's a cocktail. And at this point, I rarely took aspirin. And
oh man.
So since I haven't really struggled with that, I just took and I would take way too many because I was living alone and I would just forget, So I'd be like, oh, my back hurts, time to take my pills. 30 minutes later, oh, my back hurts, time to take my pills. And it was only 2 weeks, and I just ran out. It was only 2 weeks, thought, oh, the prescription's done, that's it. And I just felt like crap. I just took the pills, the doctors, and my doctor then in New York, in Texas at the time, was over Christmas, said, well, did you taper off of it? I said, no, they just gave me these pills. And he said, well, what are you taking? He looked at it, he said, you cannot be taking this dosage and just stop. He said, if you're feeling, and all I felt was like kind of just groggy and nauseous. He said, they're probably going through withdrawal. So then they gave me another half prescription, and I tapered off, and it was never an issue. But I thought, wow, doctors told me to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they might, a little bit more education would be good there too, as far as, monitoring and a pain management system.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, it's I don't envy it. I mean, that's what happened, with Rush Limbaugh, and I think his number he was taking like 120 pills a day. I remember seeing.
Yeah, the little blues or whatever he called them.
Yeah, exactly. And he was open about it, and like Chael says, you got to come clean. It's one of those things. It's not like heroin or a street drug or something where you have to go out and find it. This just comes to you if you have an injury. And
I think that was one of the issues with me. It's wrapped up in a little pill, and you think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, and I am hurt, so,
right.
And that's kind of the sugar coating on it. But just as bad as the stuff on the street, if not worse.
Yeah.
A lot of these synthetic opioids are, they're far worse on your body.
Well, heroin was developed as a synthetic, non-addictive alternative to morphine. Talk about a screw up.
Yeah, and Oxycontin was developed as a synthetic opiate that's non-addictive alternative to morphine too.
Yeah.
So
how's that working out?
Every time they come out with a new drug, they say it's not addictive and it's the next great thing.
And then what they do with drugs, they just will put more Tylenol in it so people won't overdose because it'll just damage they won't want to overdose. That's the thing they do a lot too. Or they go mix it with Tylenol so people won't want to overdose. They'll be afraid of it. And it doesn't. I'm going like, why? Well, why don't you just?
Is that the logic?
Yeah. Why don't you just not give them the drug? How about we start with that? All right. I think we have to go. And we'll go to the web extended version. Yeah. Okay. We've got to get going to this break. Okay. So for people listening terrestrially, the Crippler Cage Fighting and My Life on the Edge, we are going to have an extended version where no doubt Chris would horrify FCC censors. So Lotto's Crowder, go check it out there.
All right.
We're just going on the web extended. It's funny like that. That just went. That's a half hour on radio that went by, but yeah, it is weird when you think, and I'm not one of those people who thinks there's no validity to these pain pills, because then you have the people who go, well, just smoke pot, and well, hold on a second, that's not a fixer-upper either, It's just a dirty bomb.
Well, I think we may have to agree to disagree on that one. I don't smoke pot. I'm just not a fan of it, But honestly, I think it's better for you than alcohol, And if people want a vice, if they're gonna pick something to be their vice, I'd rather have them pick pot.
No, I'd rather have them pick pot than heroin or oxy, obviously.
For sure.
My problem with it is people, it's kind of like, I was on Rogan's podcast and we were talking about this. You can't say it cures cancer, it helps cognition, it helps anxiety, and then when someone tests positive, like a Diaz brother, say, but it's not a performance-enhancing drug. Okay, listen, it's either one or the other. It's either a performance-enhancing drug or it's not. And there are plenty. The big myth for me with pot is I have no doubt it helps with pain.
I can't barely walk when I'm on the stuff.
Right, exactly.
I smoke that shit, I can't walk, so it doesn't enhance my performance. I'll tell you that.
No, but people who want
I just want to lay on the couch and eat Cheetos.
Oh, and I agree. It's very impressive that the Diaz brothers can do that and then fight. Wow.
I know, it's amazing. It's mind blowing, really. It is.
It's the years of building up a tolerance, no doubt. But the idea that it's like, well, getting hammered also helps with pain. So the problem is we have a lot of people who go here and go, well, what are you paid by Big Pharma? Well, I've just made it clear that I'm not. But I also think people need to be honest about pot. If they want to get high, fine. And their state says it's legal, fine. Like you said, it's very hard. Would it be better if they're going to have a vice? Yes. But it is just that for a lot of people, a vice. And they need to be careful with that. Especially, this idea that it's Big Pharma keeping them. Big Pharma are the ones who stand to make the most from pot. They've patented, I think there's about 7 patented drugs. They just don't work really well. It's just not a very effective drug for medicine, but it's very effective at getting you high and feeling better. And if people want to do it, fine.
Sounds like medicine to me.
Well, then so would be a fifth of bourbon. Makes you feel pretty good.
That's been my problem.
Yeah, well, you've talked about that. Self-medicating. Have you ever been diagnosed with like ADHD or something? Probably, right?
Yeah, I think I got all of it. Dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, whatever. Yeah.
Well, which is usually indicative of someone who's higher functioning, and so they just need that more stimulation. Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing well. So maybe we'll have you back and check in on that. So, okay, prison. You said it wasn't that bad. So did anyone try and test themselves with you?
I'm not gonna tell you this.
Oh, that's okay. Never mind.
Might be a couple. I don't want to get in any more trouble than I'm already
okay.
in. but off the air, there's some good stories.
Okay, off the air, some good stories. But you weren't harmed seriously.
No, I was meaner than anybody in there. So.
Oh, okay. So you didn't.
I'm tougher than the rest of the. No.
Yeah, but if they have a shank.
Everybody's really nice and relatively respectful. And then in San Diego, there's a lot of politics. So So, the woods or the white people govern each other, and then you've got the blacks, they've got their table, the brothers and the others, and then you've got the essays over here, so it really, in some way, it's almost like your different political groups, so
Right.
you've got to go to their representative if you got a problem with somebody over there, so they can handle it for you, and it actually, it kind of brings down the trouble, the riffraff.
Really? So it's kind of like a model UN of rapists.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, it's like we want to please. If it pleases the UN, we like to this, and please don't rape me. Okay, we'll consider it. We've discussed it. Motion denied. Is it that okay? That's a question everyone wants to know. Is it that bad? If anyone who's watched Lockup, like the sexual accosting.
Food sucks. The food sucks. You're locked in a cell. I mean, we were locked in our cell sometimes for like 2 days straight.
Right.
They'd have something happen. We'd be locked in there. And, there's 3 guys. They welded an extra bunk in a 2-person cell. The toilet only flushes once every 20 minutes.
Why?
So you don't flood the floor.
Because people do that to be disruptive.
They keep pushing it and it overflows, and it's a way of protesting. They'll plug up the toilet and flush it.
It's kind of more displeasing to yourself if it's in your cell. If you think about it, it's like prison guards can handle it for a few hours. You're the one who has a.
Yeah, but you know these guys. The logic isn't always there.
Well, there you go. Well, my question is this, because you said you'd gained a lot of weight. For those who don't know, I mean, you're middleweight. You fight at 185. You came out of there weighing what?
246.
Good Lord. Okay. And how much of that is in your noggin? You've always had like this big, giant, photogenic.
Yeah, actually, my whole face was like swollen from salt because, you get your 3 state meals, but then, you can order stores. And the only thing on stores is like Top Ramen, Doritos, beef jerky. It's nothing but preservatives, and then candy, Now and Laters, Sour Patch Kids. And basically, because the state food was so bad, that's what I was living on. I was living on Doritos and Sour Patch Kids.
How do people get so ripped in prison? You go in and they come out far stronger than when they. Which, if we're talking about rehabilitation, I don't want violent criminals coming out.
Let's build a better criminal, right?
Yeah. Let's build a cyber
put
criminal.
Him in there with a bunch of experts in his field, and then give him a bunch of weights and let them all collaborate. I mean.
And sear our necks.
Yeah.
In the state food.
How do they get so? Obviously,
prison.
steroids.
Prison. You've got a lot more, workout equipment, and they've got a yard that they can work out in. Jail. You're just basically you get out to a bigger room. That's about it. So the only thing you can do is like burpees and push-ups. Also I think they get a little more. They have more access to food, and the other thing is if they were a tweaker or a drug addict their whole life, and then they get into jail and now they're eating 3 meals a day and they're lifting weights. I mean, yeah, they're going to get bigger.
So what was your problem? You just didn't lift the weights?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
The first month I was really sick. It took me over a month to get that Suboxone out of my system. The first 10 days I was in jail, I don't even remember at all. I mean, and some of the stories that they were telling me that I was doing is just, I was completely out of it, just lost. Yeah. With the detox, but thank God I got through that.
And you're talking about how you want to fight again. Now, I don't, not to get too personal, but your last fight was, for me as someone who's a fan, was pretty emotional. I mean, no one had ever seen that. You went back to the stool and said, no more.
Yeah, I know. And I think part of it was, being sedated.
Really?
I was fighting on the Suboxone as well.
You were on it when you were fighting?
Yeah. I had a waiver from the UFC. My last 3 fights, I was on Suboxone and fighting, and I don't think I know it took my edge away.
Well, I was going to say, I would imagine it would. Anyone who's been on some kind, if it's comparable to the pain medication you were talking about.
I mean, you can give 4 milligrams. You there? Yeah, I lost you on the screen. Yeah, you can give 4 milligrams to a heroin addict and they won't get sick. It's pretty strong stuff, And then I was fighting on 16 milligrams, which Just
Well, I know Artie Lang was on that stuff when he was quitting heroin, a comedian, and he was talking about how Subutex is this miracle drug, and so now I'm hearing a whole.
Well, you know what? It's wrapped up in that miracle drug thing. You can't overdose on it, And if you take it, any other opioids won't work. If you shoot heroin when you're on Subutex, you're going to instant withdrawal. So it keeps people alive,
right?
In that way, you know what I'm saying? It keeps them off heroin. It gives them enough to where they don't go back to heroin. Also, it blocks any opiates from working, so there's no point in wasting your money on them. But the thing is, it was developed for a 9-day detox, not a maintenance program. It's not a maintenance drug. So
well, that's like prednisone too. If you've probably used prednisone when you had really bad inflammation, it's a steroid, not the kind of steroid people are thinking, but
it's a catabolic steroid.
Yeah, well, when I took this, so that was the closest thing to like a serious drug I'd ever taken at this point. I was on a film set, and they had some intern put makeup on my eye and didn't clean the brush, and so I got this horrible eye infection. And all I remember was the 4th of July, and I couldn't even see the fireworks. It had just closed up. And so I was basically going blind. So they put me on this prednisone, and they put me on it. They didn't give me the right, because it's a very specific dosing chart. You're not supposed to be on it that long. But there are people who are on it their whole lives because doctors go, just take
I've been on it for months at a time.
You have? Yeah.
Prednisone? Yeah, it's rough.
That's ridiculous.
It's horrible for you.
Yeah.
And when I got off of it, so what happened was I kept trying to call the doctor. Going, hey, listen, I've added up the math because I'm very meticulous with this stuff. Georges St. Pierre, I'm going to analyze that and make it perfect. So I'm going, what is this? I have 4 extra pills. So I didn't finish the cycle. She never called me back. She's like, no, now you have to do a whole other cycle of prednisone because you didn't finish it.
Oh, no.
Wean it off just perfectly. Taper off just perfect.
But I didn't do it. So then when I got off the second cycle, my face was huge, and I just broke out in hives and zits. And, like, my immune function was gone. I'm going like, how can you do this as a doctor? Yeah, it's yeah, exactly.
Sounds really healthy.
My hair was still glorious though.
My mom went to Florida. I went on it. My mom went to Florida. She came back. She didn't recognize me.
Was your face huge?
My face was just massive.
And you're a skinny little bitch.
Skinny little bitch. My face was massive. It was. I burned all the photos, all of them.
I'm going to make sure not to take that because I don't need my face getting any bigger than it already is.
Well, the thing is, when you're sick, it feels so good when you get on it.
It feels so good when you're on it. I mean, you feel like you don't need sleep.
No. You eat all
really?
the time. If the pain goes
don't
away.
Tell me this.
No. You're like, but it's not. And that's where, especially if you like have any kind of an autoimmune condition, what it really does is it basically just shuts off your immune response, right? Because your immune response is going haywire.
Sending the inflammation, right?
Yeah. And so you probably have I don't know if you have inflammation in your brain or what it is, but the second you start taking this stuff, it's not like a nootropic or anything. It doesn't have any mechanism in your brain, but you just feel like you have more energy.
You don't feel better than human, should feel. You just feel like, I felt like crap for weeks and months, and now I feel human again. I feel normal. Right. I can function.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
You've probably been on it and didn't know it when you came off a fight. They almost always give it to you if you have like a really bad inflammation.
Okay.
But it was probably off. You probably were feeling the.
You can go on
more.
shorter stints.
Yeah.
You can go on for a little bit.
All right. This got off. Okay. So a couple of questions before you go, because this can go on forever. We've had interviews going for like 3-4 hours. So you want to come back and fight? Have you spoken with do you want to fight in the UFC? Have you spoken with them, or do you have any idea where it?
Well, I've been training full time. A couple times a day, trying to get my body back under control. And I have been talking with some people. I'm not really at liberty to say anything just yet, but it's not going to be the UFC.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, so you can say that.
I could say that. Yeah, I got my letter of
okay, well, let me ask you this.
Leaving them, whatever it's called.
Is that your choice or was that them? Can you answer that?
That was my choice because when you retire now, they keep you on contract for life, just to make sure you don't go. You just retire so you can jump ship.
Right. Well, that's interesting because that means that you made the conscious decision to want to fight somewhere else. Why would you rather fight somewhere else?
The UFC didn't have any. They didn't want me either. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think they're fed up with me.
So they basically said, we probably don't want you to fight for us, and you're saying, okay, well then can you let me out of the for life contract?
There we go.
There we go. Well, plus I'm sure the Reebok deal wouldn't do you any favors because you're a popular fighter, and I've heard that's a raw deal for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I mean, sponsorships used to be so much of the game. I mean, they were half my income.
Yeah.
So I always did really good on sponsorship. So yeah, the Reebok deal would mess me up.
Well, especially for fighters like you, because the deal doesn't reflect fan favorite fighters. Regardless of ranking, people wanted to see a Chris Leben fight.
Right. And not only that, but it's the individuality. You think of Phil Davis, you think of his pink shorts. And now you get your outfit. You know what I'm saying? It's like. Yeah, I feel like they've done all that they can do to make the UFC not about the athlete and about that they're in the UFC. It doesn't matter who's fighting.
Right.
If they're the main event in the UFC, they're the best in the world, and that's the important thing. They've made it all about the show itself.
Well, at first, and I agree with you, at first that would seem like a smart business decision, right? Make the UFC logo its own biggest star. But that's risky because now you see someone like a Conor McGregor coming in, and people are saying, well, he's actually calling the shots a little more because he realizes people ultimately in individual sports want to follow an individual. And
absolutely.
You think that's good?
I think he's great for the sport. Yeah, I think that banter, the build up to a fight. I mean, that's why we loved Ali so much. Was that build up and all the talking that those guys do. And I think in this sport we're half professional athlete, half WWE. I mean, you gotta have both sides. You gotta be able to talk the talk and then walk the walk as well.
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately, the UFC is really getting away from allowing guys to do much of that. They wear their outfit, they do their job.
Yeah, well, the fines now, it was Cerrone, Diaz, Rafael Dos. They all had, minimum $5,000 fines just for wearing. I mean, Cerrone puts this thing in, was it in to honor his grandma? He puts like that Muay Thai kind of
right.
shredding. And a lot of fighters have been complaining, fighters who are still under contract with the UFC. So it's for people going, well, he's not under contract, so he's bitter. No, fighters who are in the UFC now have a real problem with it. And do you think, this is entirely speculation, you can say, no, I don't want to, but do you think when you hear Georges St. Pierre's interviews, you think that was a big portion of it? Because he talked about how he thought about coming back, but just when Dana threw him under the bus at that press conference, he still seems upset about it. And it seems like the kind of thing that would stick with an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what Dana said on that one. What did Dana say?
Oh, you don't remember that?
No.
This was after Georges St. Pierre fought Johnny Hendricks, and Dana went out to the presser and he said, "You don't know this story?"
Wait, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I not to make sense, but I mean, because to me, I'm from Montreal. This is the hometown hero. You make fun of me. You're about to cross some lines, brother. And I do think.
How dare you not know this story?
Yeah, no. What happened? And he talked about this on Chael's show. It's not George. What's the real situation with Hendricks and the press conference? So he comes out. He doesn't come out. Dana comes out and he says he thought Johnny Hendricks won that fight. Fair, fine, whatever. I don't think it's the role of a president to necessarily do that, but that's what he said. And then he said Georges St. Pierre was being taken. He said something like, Johnny Hendricks is here and Georges St. Pierre is being taken to the emergency room. Backstage at this time, they were telling Georges St. Pierre he couldn't go to the presser, and he had no idea why. And he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm going to get out of my way." And he goes in. So when you now understand, kind of think of it, as like one of those films like Crash, different narratives finally colliding. And now when you understand the backstory and you see Georges St. Pierre walk in and you see Dana's face and he just got done telling the audience he was being taken to the emergency room, it's a really awkward moment. Now, did you know about
they always they're always trying to know who's going to win and twist. Then we'll have this guy fight that guy and this guy instead of just letting kind of, what happens. And, and as far as the president of the UFC goes, who's the president of the NBA? You know what I mean? People don't know. People don't see him all the time.
Do you know, not good, Jared? Oh. He's a huge NBA fan. He doesn't even know.
You know what I mean? But he's back there. He's obviously in the office. He's doing his job.
Right.
Dana seems to continue to want to be more and more and more and more famous and have more TV time, which I don't know if it was the role of the president either.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want you to
It certainly doesn't need to be.
No, I don't want to get too off in the weeds where obviously you can get in trouble. We had Tim Kennedy on, and he just let it loose. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I don't care. I don't like him. But Tim Kennedy, it's just he's a smart business dude, and he doesn't need to fight anymore, so he can say whatever he wants. But for Georges St. Pierre, I know the drug testing he was really upset about, and he did all that voluntary testing, and he said that was a big thing. He definitely felt disrespected. And he talked about that on Chael's show. And this is a guy who was, by all measurable barometers we had, he was pretty much a company man. I mean, George did what he was asked. He was a great athlete.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the longest running champs ever,
Yeah. And as soon as he leaves, he's nowhere in the, UFC all-time list. It's only Anderson Silva and, like Chuck and these guys. Like, well, shouldn't George St. Pierre be at the top there somewhere? And he was just gone from the list. Sorry. Montreal. Crazy. Biased, Montreal. Okay, final question. You were on The Ultimate Fighter, and you came in there, and one thing you have, they say you can't teach it, but I'm hoping maybe there's hope. You have God-given power, knockout power. Have you always had it? Did it get better with training, or is just one of those things Chris Leben was born with?
I think it's one of those things you're born with in some ways. I mean, you can teach a guy technique. You can make him hit somewhat harder. But, as a coach, one thing I notice, I've always got guys that have great technique, but they just can't get the power. They just don't have the knockout power. And then there's other guys, horrible technique, and every time they touch somebody, they're falling down. So I think that, and then, also being able to take a shot. Mm-hmm. It's another thing you can't teach. Some guys can just can take a hit well, and other guys can't.
Yeah,
those are the two things I think that are just
God-given. How do you explain someone like McGregor, who people talk about his power, but he's not. He's throwing like Michael Bisping, right? Does not have knockout power, but he's a pretty crisp striker. He can get in and get out. Same thing with Conor McGregor, though. He's not necessarily winding up a lot. Like, you look at his last knockout, it was a quick, short punch, and the precision seems to be enough. Why is it that sometimes precision, again, just ignoramus here, why is it sometimes precision is all you need, boom, and then for someone else, it doesn't? Is there something I'm missing?
I mean, if you catch him on the jaw, in the right spot and clip that jaw, it doesn't need to be a lot of power. If you hit somebody in the forehead and you knock them out, that means you hit them with a lot of power. So obviously, their placement is a factor, but we've seen, like Anderson Silva, knocking out Forrest, with a jab going backwards,
Yeah.
They're generating that power from, it might not look like it, but the power is coming from somewhere.
Okay. So really you're just saying Michael Bisping's a pansy.
I'm
kidding. I wanted to,
you didn't hear it from me.
No, I don't want to reopen old wounds. I tell you what, I used to hate him, and now I see him kind of like, oh, okay. He seems like he's matured a little bit. I mean, people change, people grow up.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy in any way, but true though. When I fought him in the third round, I was just letting him punch me in the face.
I remember that.
At the end, trying to get him to engage because he wanted to just run backwards the whole time. And I think I even let him kick me in the head without blocking it.
Yeah.
In that fight, and not much power there.
Was that fight the one where we had the Uriah Faber cornrows?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it was.
What did you go on a cruise or something? Come back with those beads in your hair?
No beads. I don't know what that one was. That was a one-time thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was a one-time thing. I remember coming, I was like, what is this? This is like he was like one of those girls who went to a semester at sea. They come back with those they all have that.
Please tell me he's prepping for a movie role or something.
I don't know. Would we see the Crippler go to films? Is that, or you just no?
Absolutely, yeah. Why not?
I don't know. I mean,
why not? I did a TV show, Navy Street, last year, and heck, TV's pretty good money. Beats working a regular job,
It does. Well, it's changing a lot now. I mean, most of the big actors are going to online TV. I mean, you got
really.
Well, think Kevin Spacey. House of Cards.
Right.
Amy Poehler. Yeah. What's her name? The Indian girl from The Office. Mindy, whatever. John Goodman is back on TV with. Gosh, there's so many now when you think about it.
Between HBO and Amazon, even got their own thing going on now.
What's the recent Netflix show? I'm trying to think. There's one that's like there's so many.
Making a Murderer, Making a Killer.
Oh, we did a video on that. Yeah, well,
right? That's the new Netflix one, right?
Yeah, well, we had Stephen Avery, the killer, call into the show, and everyone. I mean, the show isn't entirely serious, and no one really knows if it's real or fake, and so we're not going to answer them. But I'm amazed at the stupidity of the internet sometimes. We'll see. Yeah, if you watch it though, it is a little bit BS. Have you seen it yet, Making a Murderer?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
It's manipulative film. No doubt the cops should be fired, absolutely, and there should be a mistrial, right? They tamper evidence. There's no doubt about that. Okay, but then can we all agree that the guy who doused a cat in gasoline, the family cat, and threw it on a bonfire and like masturbated on the sheriff's cousin's car, like this was not a good dude. And they make it seem the whole time like he couldn't hurt a fly. You just need to show the police report from him dousing the family cat in gas and burning it, and no one would sign this petition to let him out. You know? So
it's a very short leap from there to murder, really.
That's a horrible thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and his whole thing is like like he doesn't deny. He's like, "Well, it was an accident there." What the? How does it? You ever done that by accident, Chris?
No, I don't think I have.
Well, and you've done time on the slammer. Apparently, this guy has the edge on you. But and he also had a lot of money too. There's a whole bunch of things wrong with it. Anyways, go if you watch it, you'll see. But there was another show. These huge names on Netflix now. And it's changed a lot. I mean, just our friend Gary Sinise, he was in film, a big film star, and then had CSI New York. TV's so good now.
I think I had Billy Bob Thornton doing the FX series of the Coen brothers. What was it? Fargo.
Fargo. That's right. William H. Macy now.
They're all coming to TV one way or another. All these networks.
It's just so expensive to go to the theaters, and you just get piped half the time. Have you seen The Revenant yet? You're a movie guy, right? You're a big movie buff.
Not so much.
Just comedies?
I like old movies and stuff, but going to the theater, watching the new ones, it's hard for me to sit still for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And not talk. So I usually wait till it comes out on video.
Well, The Revenant is tough to watch. It's probably not one you'd want to go and watch. It's like 3 hours, and it's very painful. It almost gets to the point. I don't want to spoil, but like if you plan it, it's like Mr. Bill. Remember Mr. Bill? Oh no! You like run over by a car and like everything Leonardo DiCaprio. You're like, okay. I mean, everyone knows he gets attacked by a bear, right? So that happens. But then like the makeshift stretcher they have him on breaks, and his bear wounds are being raked across the ice, and then he gets thrown off a cliff, and then he like gunpowder in the wounds. You're just like, oh my god. And this happened in the theater. True story. We thought a guy was having a seizure in the theater. So this is happening literally at the scene. Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't want to spoil for it. There's one scene where he's putting gunpowder, spoiler alert, in his wound and lights it on fire to cauterize the wound. So it's really painful to watch. As we're watching it in the theater, a guy 4 seats down starts projectile vomiting. We thought he had a seizure. What happened was, so I call 911. My wife, who's really bossy, was like, "Everyone get out of the row. Is there a doctor?" So we get a doctor. The guy won't stop throwing up, and he's like shaking. I'm like, this guy's gonna. So he turns out he'd just fallen asleep, and a popcorn kernel got in his mouth. So you just throw up once, so you wake up with a mouthful of vomit. And then you just start aspirating. And on the scene, the guy's cauterizing the wound. It was the most chaotic scene I've ever seen in my life.
Furthering why I don't like to go to the movie theater.
You never know. Guy might.
Exciting though.
Yeah. Well, then I got pissed. I felt like such a jerk because so this is going on a scene for 20 minutes, and like, okay, everyone get back. They put the tarp over the vomit, and they just restart the movie. I'm like, you couldn't rewind it like 10 minutes? I mean, I missed 10 minutes. So afterwards, I'm the dick who goes to them. And I'm like, I know a guy. At this point, we didn't know him. Like, I know the guy possibly had like an aneurysm or a seizure, but I did pay for a full movie. So can you give me a pass? And the guy just looked at me like, really? But he gave me the pass. So, that's a story. Oh, right. Well, you're a good guy. You should get into this podcast radio game. Are you going to start one up? Can we expect one from you?
Not in the near future, but I got a couple things going right now, but I do like to hear myself talk.
Well, we like to hear you talk. All right, anytime you want to come back, great guest. It's way better than these annoying politicians.
Oh, terrible.
Terrible. Crippler, Cage Fighting, and My Life on the Edge. Where can people find it, sir?
Amazon. You can order it right on Amazon. Easy.
Amazon, and you are on Twitter. Is it Crippler UFC?
Crippler UFC. Of course, you might have to change that.
Yes, I was going to say. Crippler, Dana's mad at me. Louderwithcrowder.com. I want to keep it for just 2 minutes. I want to hear those off-air stories. Chris Leben, go get his book. Stay tuned. Hey, if you like this video, subscribe by clicking my face or the button above, or click on one of the videos next to me. I know what you're thinking. Steven, you're crazy. I'm not. You hear those voices?